All right, everyone. My name is Dr. Brad Meyer from Stephen F. Austin State University. This is tip number 5 for the 2023 TMEA Timpani Etude, and this is on dampening. This is something that I get a lot of questions about. I think it's really important that you may take what I have to say and apply it to your playing. You may do something differently, but at the end of the day, you should have a way that you think about dampening that is consistent throughout your piece. So I like to focus on the very last section, starting around measure 79. And so if we look in this section, we can see that we have a couple different things. In measure 81, we have an eighth note rest, which we don't have a lot of. And it's marked with an eighth note rest. It's not marked with a dotted quarter note, because a dotted quarter would imply a full value, and there's not many eighth note rests throughout this piece. So I think it's important to show that rest. And then also there's a couple times, like throughout the other parts of the piece, where we have to dampen out for the long rest, just like we do here at the very end of the piece. And then there's also this last little A to GD that we have. And while A to D is a dissonant, a perfect fourth, it's a dissonance, we want that G to D to ring at least for that quarter notes moment, and then we can dampen out everything. So for me, I play that first note, I dampen on the eighth note, and then I go. So what you saw me do is on the A's, I hit 3 A's, and then the G, I dampen out the A, and then as I go up to the D. So that looks like in slow-mo this. And that lets that perfect fifth ring nicely for that quarter note. There's not a whole lot of distance going on, and then I dampen out for that last note. So the only other times I really dampen for this piece is when we have long periods of rest, whether it's 3 bars or 6 bars. And so those are great points to dampen out. But what I really want to avoid is lots of unnecessary dampening that are maybe well-intentioned, but are a little bit overly done and can actually cause a lot more problems than are needed. So for example, if you look at measure 73, I haven't seen anyone do it yet because people are just learning them. But if people are trying to go and trying to dampen out those 3 drums at the beginning, that's a lot. And even though it might have some clarity to it versus, we have a lot of issues with slightly choked off notes. We have a lot of issues with the dampening making sounds, and just things are being a little bit too hectic. So make sure you don't over dampen when you are doing your dampenings. So when it comes to dampening, it's important that we know how to dampen. So I always say, do the scuba diver I'm okay symbol, and then that thumb and first finger are going to hold your mallet, and then your back fingers are going to be your dampening fingers. And all we're going to do is dampen with the front pads. We're not going to dampen with the heel of our hand or our arm or anything like that. And we're going to just place it right where we play. So things we want to avoid are, first of all, slapping the drum with those back 3 fingers, because obviously that creates a sound. We also don't want to swipe the drum, because that creates a sound. Next, we don't want to press hard into the drum, because while it might feel like we're dampening it quicker, we aren't. We're actually bending the pitch up, and that sounds like this. And then lastly, we want to make sure when we're dampening, we put those 3 fingers right where we played, which is generally going to be between 2 to 4 inches from the drum, depending on if it's a bigger drum, it's going to be about 3.5 to 4 inches in. On a smaller drum, it's going to be about 2 inches in. And so we're going to put that hand, or those 3 fingertips, right where we struck. So if I struck here, I'm going to dampen here. So a lot of people will accidentally dampen too far back, and that lets the drum ring, and that sounds like this. So always make sure that we're dampening right where we played with a nice light touch, and that should sound like this. I hope those tips about dampening help you. Best of luck on your audition or your performance.